It's almost ECU baseball season, and we'll talk about that right now. Joining us on the Pirate Radio Live line, you know we had to get him in before the start of the 2024 season. He is Aaron Fitt from D1 Baseball, joining us on Pirate Radio Live. Aaron, how you doing, man?
I'm good, Clip. How are you doing?
Doing great. And, man, we've been getting some chilly but clear, pretty nice February weather. We just hope that can stick around one more week, Aaron, for some baseball here in Greenville and across the state and the country, and excited going into this year. And first, we'll get your take on the Pirates, Aaron. Overall, I was able to check out a little bit of the scrimmage on Sunday and see some of the parts they have coming back and some of the new pieces. When you look at what Cliff Godwin has returning, the guys he's brought in via high school, via the transfer portal, what's your 2024 outlook on ECU?
Yeah, it's just kind of, a rinse and repeat here for East Carolina. They're going to be really good again. Clearly the team to beat in the American. I think we've got them ranked, around number 12 or so in the preseason. I mean, a team that looks like it's got a really good chance to host a regional again and, make an Omaha run. It's all there. I really like, in particular, that they've got high-end frontline starting pitching. I feel like that's always a separator. When you've got a couple arms that you can run out there in the first two games of a potential super regional that can shut somebody down. And ECU's had teams like that before. They've gotten very close to Omaha, when you've got a Gavin Williams or, an Agnos at the front of your rotation. That really helps. And, of course, now you got a first-team All-American in Trey Savage, who I think is going to have a monster year. I mean, he had a huge year last year, and sounds like he's only gotten better. And then Zach Root, just a big-time breakout guy as a sophomore behind him, a lefty that got a lot of experience last year, has got real stuff. So I love that 1-2 punch. Plenty of pitching depth around those guys. You got a real closer with Danny Beal who's got experience, and it's another balanced, exciting lineup.
Aaron Fitt joining us, and I'm in the East Carolina bubble. A lot of us are. We know Trey Savage is very good, Aaron, but sometimes I don't know how good he is kind of compared to the best across the country. Apparently, you think he's up there. Did I see him number 3 in a D1 baseball ranking for starting pitchers this year?
Yeah, we have him number 3 behind only Josh Hartle from Wake Forest and Hagen Smith from Arkansas.
Wow.
And then it's Savage, if I had to pick one of those guys right now, I might pick Trey. I mean, it's really close between those 3. It really is. But I think Trey's a slam dunk. I mean, just if you look at the success he had last year, he's going to dominate, certainly, their schedule. And it's a guy that it's mid to high 90s with command, and plus a wipeout slider that he can command, and he's got a splitter that he can get swing and miss with, and now you flip in that curveball too. It's just a really complete guy. So just a special talent.
Aaron, I was thinking about this today, that the last couple of years we've seen bounce-back seasons from Pirates, and I guess a couple of years ago, Bryson Worrell fit that category. Last year, Josh Moylan, coming off a down year, had a good year for East Carolina. Jacob Jenkins-Coward maybe fits into that category this year. He had that injury that was brutal, that we don't wish upon any man, that he suffered last year. Says he's ready to go 100% now, so he's certainly in that camp. How about, comeback players or breakout players on this ECU team? Who fits that mold for you?
Yeah, and certainly you're right. JC, that's a guy that, and it's funny, we say, he had a down year last year because he set the bar pretty high as a freshman, but he still hit, 293, hit 9 home runs. He had a fine year, but there is, a lot more potential there. I mean, if he's healthy all year long, it's a different animal. So yeah, I think it's fair to label him as that, as a guy that's going to have a much bigger year than he had last year. But Ryan McChrystal comes to mind, and he was kind of the buzzy guy in fall camp back in fall 2022. They were really excited about him. Then he got hurt, and just kind of got blocked, really. Justin Wilcoxon ran with that catcher job, and Crystal kind of got buried a little bit, didn't get a lot of playing time last year, but they still like him. I mean, there is really a lot to like about that left-handed swing. There is power potential. I suspect he'll see a lot of time at DH and maybe spell Wilcoxon as well behind the plate because he can throw. He can catch. I mean, he's a talented catcher in his own right, so they're lucky to have some insurance at that crucial position. But that for me is kind of an obvious guy that I would think would be that that bounce back. And you could throw Dixon Williams in there. I mean, for me, Dixon Williams falls more into the breakout category as a sophomore. But somebody that didn't play much last year that they're really excited about. I would expect he'll be the everyday third baseman. I'm not sure what exactly they're doing in their early scrimmages here this spring, but that's where I would expect to see him. And he's just an athletic dude who I think can fill up the stat sheet, do a lot of different things to help you and play really good defense.
Aaron Fitt, D1 Baseball, joining us. If you go to D1 Baseball right now, you can check out the American Athletic Conference preview with Trey Savage right there front and center on D1 Baseball. All kinds of goodies there. We'll tell you everything they got going on in just a moment. Aaron, you mentioned a moment ago ECU, the favorite in the American, and every year we have these preview chats. You have said that phrase. How about the influx of new teams? How does that affect this conference? How does it affect ECU standing? Which one of these new teams could challenge the Pirates this year?
Yeah, I definitely think it makes it a better league. I don't think that hurts East Carolina because I think they're still clearly the class of the league, but I think it helps them because it gives you a chance, I think, to have even a better RPI. Charlotte, Florida Atlantic, UTSA, these have all been contenders in Conference USA over the last few years. I mean, UTSA is really a rising program under Patrick Hallmark, and FAU has been a consistent winner, kind of in that UNC Wilmington tier of teams that are like kind of consistent regional programs for the last 20 years. And Charlotte is like UTSA with Robert Woodard at the helm there. I think they're trying to make their third regional in the last 4 years. They're really, for me, Charlotte's the number 2 team here, although it's kind of unclear because a lot of these teams have a ton of turnover, and it's just hard to know what to expect nowadays with the portal. I mean, the landscape is so different, and ECU is one of those teams that hasn't really done it that way. They're really just kind of sticking to their developmental plan, and yeah, you plug in a transfer here or there as you need to, but it's I love the way East Carolina still runs things, where you've got these program guys that get better and better, but a lot of teams, you lose a bunch of guys, and Charlotte did because they had a very good year last year. Lost a bunch of guys to the draft and graduation, as you would expect. And so they went out and just, got a whole bunch of transfers and plugged them in there. And I think they did a very good job with it. That's why I think they're probably a regional caliber team. But you just never know. But they've got some power arms there, especially in the bullpen. Some guys that I really like. I think they should have a very good bullpen. Kind of a nice blend of some power and some speed in the lineup. You got a couple returning pretty good players like a Caden Hobson or Brandon Stallman at shortstop, some nice up-the-middle pieces. So they feel like the biggest contender, but I think ECU clearly, well ahead.
Aaron Fitt joining us. That's interesting, Aaron. We kind of see what ECU does as far as, they'll grab a guy here or there, or Chris Kaler, somebody out of the portal, but mostly they are going the traditional route. And I was wondering if that was the case more so in baseball than football and basketball. The roster turnover is crazy now in those sports. It sounds like you're saying it's the same in baseball, but maybe we just don't see it here at ECU. But your job has become tougher these last few years, Aaron, doing previews with all the new faces everywhere. Yeah,
it's really, it used to be you'd kind of have a trajectory that you could follow for a program, right? I mean, you get a strong freshman class in, you kind of expect a little jump as sophomore, and then year 3, this is their year to make a run. And now it's just, all bets are off. The portal is a real game changer, and some teams it's like they're shopping in the portal more than in the high school ranks, and they throw in some JUCO guys too. You can really transfer the roster in a hurry. It may not even be necessary to have these kind of transitional years anymore. You can just instantly plug your holes, and so it'll be fascinating to see how this all plays out over the next 5 years. And I don't know. All I know is it's here to stay. It has made it more difficult to forecast what's going to happen. That is certainly true.
We got Aaron on another 5 to 10 minutes. If you want to get in a question on YouTube or Facebook, you could do so. Jack says, ask Aaron, how did he pass up on JC and Starman, Jacob Starling, for the Fitty Barrel squad? Well, you can't choose everybody, but sounds like you like JC this year and Jacob Starling, one of those possible breakout guys for ECU as well, Aaron.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I don't know if is that a reference to we just did a kind of a fantasy draft at D1 Baseball based on our position rankings where we all kind of constructed our own teams. I didn't realize that was posted yet, but yeah, it looks like it is posted. So there you go. Yeah. That's a quick pull right there. I mean, Starling's one of my favorite players too. And that one, that's a whiff by me. I'll hand up there. I went for a two-way player at second base who could help me in the bullpen also. But Starling's awesome, man. That guy's a whole lot of fun to watch. He has been for quite a while now, and he's just gotten better and better. And it kind of occurred to me as I was previewing East Carolina. He's so much more than just the energy guy, and just that he's always kind of that clutch player that came through with the big hit for you. It seemed like, but he kind of does it all. He fills it up for an undersized dude. He hit double-digit home runs last year. He sold almost 20 bags. I mean, he plays great defense. I mean, he's one of the best players in the field. And credit to him. He's just really worked hard and made himself into a really, really good player. And as we talked about, Jenkins Cowart. I mean, that guy. I would expect him to have a monster year as a junior.
Aaron always asks you, is there a front runner this year? We saw Wake Forest in the season they had. I think going into this year when we had our chat with you last year, LSU was the team that you had at the top, and they were the team at the end. But Wake Forest had something to say about it during the regular season. How about this year? Is it a couple of teams there at the top and a gap? Is it a lot of parity? How do you think it shakes out at the top this year?
Well, we had kind of a spirited debate in the preseason between Wake Forest and then three SEC teams, Florida, Arkansas, LSU. I didn't think going into that discussion that Wake was maybe the slam dunk number one. For me, they lost a lot of key guys from last year. I mean, multiple All-Americans on the mound, and Brock Wilkin in the lineup, and a whole bunch of guys that were key parts of that thing. But then you kind of break it down, and my goodness, they've got 5 preseason All-Americans this year. I mean, again, a team that picked its spots in the portal and just hit home runs with Chase Burns from Tennessee, who it's just, I mean, listen, the guy has got absurd stuff. He was the National Freshman of the Year 2 years ago. Kind of just had an off sophomore year, wound up in the bullpen. But now you got him with, in my opinion, one of the very best pitching coaches in the country, Corey Muscara. I saw a video of Burns in a scrimmage this week, and wow! I mean, it's kind of terrifying how good that guy could be if he can iron out a few things, and it seems like he has. So you throw him in there with Hartle and Michael Massey. Your whole rotation now is preseason All-Americans. You throw in Seaver King, who was a Team USA guy this summer. He's your starting center fielder. That's another preseason All-American, and then Nick Kurtz is back at first base. So that star power is unmatched, and I don't think they're quite as deep as they were last year in certain areas, especially on the mound. But there's still a lot to like, and it does feel like they're clearly the team to beat. And now, as we've talked about before, the number one team in the country doesn't usually win at all because you got to be the hottest team. It's not usually the best team that wins it, but. Last year it happened. LSU was preseason number 1, and they won it all. It's the first time I can remember that happening. So maybe the jinx is over. Maybe it's Wake Forest's turn.
Aaron Fitt joining us. Aaron, kind of a big picture question here with all the realignment and the new world of college athletics. The one thing I fear is they're going to take away my NCAA tournament, my March Madness. Love the Cinderella, love the underdog. You can say the same about the regionals and the road to Omaha. Any concerns that there will be a split off? And if so, will it just stick to football? Will that affect what we see postseason with baseball? Have you thought about what this might look like 5, 10, 15 years from now? Yeah,
it feels like we're on the brink of some seismic changes, doesn't it? It just, with the current model, doesn't really feel sustainable. Where you've got all this consolidation, of course, with the power conferences, and the power conferences just keep getting bigger and bigger. Where are we headed? I mean, is it just going to be you've got the SEC and the Big Ten, and those are the only two leagues left, and there's 50 teams in those 2 leagues, and then that's it. They're playing for the big prize. Everybody else just gets table scraps. I don't know. I mean, maybe maybe it's a situation where we've got like a totally different structure for football with their conference alignment versus every other sport. Because what we've got now is nonsense. I mean, Stanford and Cal playing in the Atlantic Coast Conference. I mean, the dissolution of the Pac-12 is just it's an athletic tragedy. It's not a real world tragedy, but as far as athletics go, it's just sad because that was a wonderful league that made so much sense. The symmetry of it. You had 2 teams in Washington, 2 teams in Oregon, 2 teams in NorCal, 2 in SoCal, 2 in Arizona, and they all kind of, would play home and homes 1 trip each year to each place. It was just like actually a perfect baseball conference in a lot of ways. And now you've got it all broken up with some of those teams going to the ACC, some of the Big Ten, some of the Big 12. That stinks. And you know, I don't know. I guess the genie's out of the bottle. I can sit here and cry about it, but I don't think the Pac-12 is coming back. And so, you know, I don't know. Maybe the answer is just we have a one AA type of a division structure that could happen in baseball as the SEC and those power conference teams pour more and more resources into it, and you're Stony Brook. How are you going to compete? You know, it's already hard enough for them, but I can't imagine it's going to get any easier.
Well, whatever it does shake out, however it does. Aaron Fitt will be covering it and covering it well. Mr. College Baseball, Aaron Fitt joining us. Go to d1baseball.com. They've got previews for the conferences, player position rankings, things like that. The fantasy draft he just spoke about from the D1 Baseball podcast. What else, Aaron, can people find there if they want to subscribe and be a part of it?
Yeah, boy. I mean, our staff's going to be all over it once we get to opening day here. You know, covering the country all season long. You know, podcasts, top 25 stuff. Of course, you can read the American Athletic Conference preview on the site today, as you mentioned. We've got more conference previews coming out over the next week leading up to opening day. So check us out, d1baseball.com.
And Aaron, I'm sure we'll see you at Clark LeClaire a time or two this year. And I'm curious, as we let you go, do you have a schedule of games you're attending, or do you kind of do that on the fly, week to week? Do you know where you'll be, or are you up in the air on that?
I've mapped out the first 3 weeks or so. You know, the first 3 weeks are so valuable for us because you can get those tournaments with a whole bunch of teams in one stop. And so as much as I love to see that North Carolina ECU series in week 2, I think that's wonderful traveling series. I'm going to be on the road seeing some teams out in Texas, you know, so I can get more bang for my buck. But after that, we'll kind of see how the season plays out. Good
deal. Well, we'll see you this season, Aaron, and we'll talk to you down the road. Appreciate you joining us today, man.
All right, Cliff, you got it.
Aaron Fitt, D1 Baseball. You know it's coming when we get Aaron Fitt on Pirate Radio Live. Great to talk to him. Head over to D1 Baseball to get your baseball fix. I know a lot of you out there are huge Pirate fans and college baseball junkies, and D1 Baseball, the place to go.